to check their privacy and name being revealed. So I think we can start the recording. And now I will properly hand over to Patrick.
Thanks. Yeah, so this will be quite a short presentation. And I do encourage, if you have any comments during, it's just to speak up and say something. So we're going to talk about the themes in Grafana. Just to clarify what we mean by the themes, it's basically the colors. That is basically the things that separate the themes. There's no really other stylings that does it. So let's get started with some history of Grafana. So basically, when in the beginning, it was more like a Grafana basically had like a dark UI. There was a light UI, but I mean, I think the most used one was the dark one. There was not much effort put into the light one compared to the dark. But it was then with the launch of Grafana 4, which sort of tried to bring up the light theme on par with the dark theme. So a lot of effort was put in there too. And it was basically launched as a new feature with that release. And continuing in that.
Sorry to interrupt, just remind me again, when was the Grafana 4 release?
Oh, that was a couple of years back.
3 years ago? I think 3 years ago or 4 years ago.
3 or 4 years ago. So yeah, and and after that, basically the themes have been like sort of iterated, slightly improved for each release. But it was with Grafana 6, we also introduced the themes into the actual visualizations. We had it before, I think, in the single stats, but now the color picker also changed depending on which theme you used. So a dashboard, so the dashboard's colors also changed, unless you added your own custom colors, of course. This feature wasn't really like greatly implemented. It could have been implemented in a better way, and I took responsibility as the designer of it. But it was still a step in the right direction. So now then, currently, we have like a main issue with the themes, and that is consistency. Since they don't really are consistent with each other, it's kind of hard now to design new components, because you sort of have to design them in different ways for the different themes, depending on what backgrounds and so forth. It's also harder to manage. I mean, there are a couple of hacks in there to make things work. So especially in the dark theme, where you have one page background for the dashboard, but then you have to change it for the admin pages, so that the content background is the same as the panel background. So there's a lot of hacking there going on. So that brings us today. So what are we doing today with these issues? So currently, then, what we want is the themes to be easy to manage in the code. We want accessible colors and contrasts. We want consistency between the themes. And of course, we then also want beautiful dashboards. Something that would be cool that we are talking about are themes as plugins, or at least making it easier for like white labeling and so forth. But at this point, our priority is making it manageable in the code. I mean, that's really the top priority. So how will we go about reaching there? So at the moment, we're looking into mirroring the themes, since that makes it a lot easier to implement in the code. It's much easier to keep the contrast levels and so forth the same in the themes, and keep the themes consistent. We also looked into taking inspiration from the branding colors used by marketing and going slightly bluer. And that is basically just for creating more appeal in the dashboards, especially the dark theme. But this is still sort of an exploration state. I mean, we haven't implemented anything of this at all. So I'm just going to show you some mockups just to see like where we are at the moment, and see what you think, and hopefully get some feedback on it. So we'll start with the light theme, and here we'll see it's more like a facelift. I mean, we removed the borders of the panels and darkened the background a bit, added a gradient, and it goes in a more of a blue tone. And here we also looked into like changing, as you can see here, maybe toning down the buttons and so forth. I mean, this is still just exploration, and it gets like this slightly more bluish tone. The big change is then in the dark theme, and here's the tricky part, because we want dark panels on a lighter background. So as you can see here, the contrast between the panels are pretty low, but it still looks, yeah. So this is what the big challenge is, basically, color-wise. So here's what the panel would look like, could look like, a dashboard, and here you have then in the admin pages what it will look like. And here we are also trying like new buttons, because we've gotten feedback that the ones we have now are quite intense, and we're taking some inspiration here from material design with the buttons and having black text, so then we can have bright buttons but are not that intense. And that's basically it. So now I hope we can get some questions or comments or thoughts. It doesn't need to be related to this. I know I've seen in the document people wondering about being able to switch themes easier and so forth. So I'm going to be quiet for a moment, and yeah.
So hey, everyone, oh, sorry. Yeah, you go.
Hey everyone, I'm Joshua. I'm a TAM that started recently. This is my third week. Can you talk a little bit more about accessibility and what that exactly means? Because I know some of the other platforms that I've used have certain considerations for folks who are colorblind or have difficulty distinguishing between different colors.
Yeah, so one change we did before, that was the change from green buttons to blue buttons. It was one of those just for colorblindness. Colorblindness is, I think, one of the trickiest thing with in regards of visualization like this. But that's also not. It's more than the themes when you talk about colorblindness. Because when we look at accessibility with the themes, we're looking mostly at contrast levels, making sure that they are like AA level on those. So it's, and for when it comes to color blindness, you usually want another indicator than color. So you basically want two things as a visual indicator rather than just color. So we haven't really figured out, we've been testing with greens and reds, for instance, in these panels and so forth. And if you have the more severe types of green blindness or red blindness, it's really tricky. Then you have to use sort of light intensity to differ them. But we haven't really come that far as looking into use just those things. I hope that was some kind of answer.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
There's also an approach that Slack has, for instance. I don't know whether that would be applicable here, but what Slack does, it has several themes, and I think 2 or 3 with high accessibility, like specific themes for specific problems with your vision.
Yeah.
Also something you could explore.
And I think there it is a bit about, I mean, if we want an accessible color palette for the visualizations. So if you basically change to that theme, it basically the visualizations change rather than the UI, but I'm not sure.
So if I've understood correctly, All in all, there's around 8 to 9% of all people who have some kind of color blindness, which is a big number, but on the other hand, there's a lot of different kinds, right? So it's really hard to cater for each of them in the same way. So of course, if any of you know people that are colorblind, I mean, I know for a fact that Dominic is, so he can be our usability tester, but it would be great to have a handful of people with different types of color blindness in order to be able to better understand how to help them best, because currently we're just working with some technological tools to try and simulate what they might be experiencing, but of course it's always better to get real opinions from real people. So please send your colorblind people to us and we will use their force to make Grafana better for them.
Dominic, do you have any comments on colors in Grafana?
Well, not really, to be honest. I really like the blue theme proposition by you, Patrick. I think it looks really nice. Yeah. I mean, the only comment that I may have is at the beginning, I was super confused because I didn't know what the color of the graph is, the default graph. And actually, I just realized that I still don't know whether it's orange or green.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
And that's a really good point. I don't think we have discussed that. I would actually suggest that maybe we should use a default color that has high contrast to the theme. So in this dark theme, the yellowish kind would probably be good because yellow has high contrast to blue, or like orange or something like that. But in light theme, I wouldn't know what that would be.
No, and I think also like the second color, I think the second color is one of the most important ones, because if people just do it like default add to series, it's important that these two really contrast each other in that perspective.
Yeah, but maybe color theory can help us there, and we can use these sort of triadic color patterns or something.
Yeah.
Sorry if I might have missed it, but is this the new blue shade? Is this one official, the new color?
No,
or
not
is
yet.
No, not yet.
Okay. Yeah,
so,
I really. Oh, go ahead. Sure.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I really enjoyed this blue, and as you know, like marketing side, we are obsessed with blue and orange. But I think this has a good alignment with the marketing side as well. So I really I'm really enjoying this blue.
Thanks.
Patrick Sriram here. So is this the blue will be the third theme, or it will be replacing the dark theme currently we have?
It will replace the dark. Well, we don't know yet.
It's not yet decided. I mean, it will either replace or it will be a new theme. We're also looking into making it possible maybe to create more themes, but it's like early stages discussions going on. And I can see actually, Sriram, that you mentioned that more themes needs to be supported.
Yeah, so because I know the need for this, because I am the author of Boom Theme Panel, because many people requested me, can you create a theme for this, that. I know that. There's a heavy demand for the themes, custom themes.
Mm-hmm. And when you say custom themes, what do you, like, I know what custom themes mean, but what level of customization are we talking
Okay,
about?
so sometimes people want to change the background color because currently it is very much hard coded to black and white, right? So they may want some orangey colors, pink colors. So there are different requests. Individual users may have different contrast colors. So the Boom theme panel which I have, giving the ability to customize dashboard level. So people ask me to, okay, can we have this as a Grafana level? Can we set up somewhere where it can change all the dashboards background to this color, something like that. And sometimes people have different background pictures, gradient pictures, and something like that. So that's main custom themes.
So I have a follow-up question about that, because as we are worried about accessibility, we are not sure whether we would want to give total control away to the user. So right now, this sort of dark blue shade and the light blue shade could be an entryway to having either a dark or light shade of every color, but probably we wouldn't allow for a sort of right in the middle shade, because that would make it really hard to bring in visualization colors. So what do you think about that? Do you think it should be completely flexible, or would you be okay with this sort of light or dark of any color solution?
Yeah, I understand there's a accessibility constraints, but what I meant to say is, okay, the blue and the white should be hardcoded the default themes, but there should be an option for the end users to select the background color which they want.
Ah, I got it. That's kind of interesting, actually. But then we will still have the thing where we could as Jess talked about, just from an accessibility standpoint, you would still have sort of a limitation to what colors you could choose for the background. So if you were using the light theme, you could change the background color, but probably just to.
Okay, say for example, let me. So let's have some color picker at the top of the dashboard. Say for example, there's some kind of slider that user can change the color and see, okay, this nice yellow color fits background. They will choose their own color. They can see the preview what the dashboards would look like. So they will have the flexibility to choose their own color, right? So that's what I meant to say.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, but it would still be sort of a slightly limited. So if you have, like, for instance, since you have the header and the buttons and so forth at the top, and these need to be visible. So as long as it's a lighter color, that's not a problem in the light theme, or a dark color in the dark theme. But it's an interesting idea that be able to pick your own background color. I kind of like it, but it's an interesting idea. And also, that's quite interesting, yes, because with this mock-up, the panels are actually black with the low opacity. So basically, the panels would adjust to the background color. So yeah, just want to say that.
Also, is there any option to include images as background instead of colors?
Come again?
Instead of colors, is it possible to use images?
Oh.
Not at the moment.
No.
No. And why would you like to use images?
Yes.
For background?
People may want to customize. Okay, say for example, right now people are in Halloween mood, so they want to put some Halloween images.
Ah, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think it's a fun idea. It depends how it would be, because I mean it shouldn't really distract from the information, right, of the visualizations.
Okay, I just gave an example. Maybe some teams may want to use their branding as the background colors, something like that.
Yeah, but I did read one of your comments about changing the themes between light and dark. That is a bit tricky at the moment, and I want to say I agree with you that we should probably just have a switch somewhere. That's an idea I did like, I must say.
Shiram, you also mentioned some technicalities like current dark light themes are tightly coupled with the code. All the styles should be isolated from TypeScript React component code. Dominic, any comment on that?
Excuse me, sorry, could you repeat, Diana?
Yeah, so Shiram, could you maybe explain a bit your second question, or maybe it's a comment more?
Yeah, okay. It's okay. As per my understanding, the themes are tightly integrated with the plugins itself, the dark theme or light theme. So what I feel is the styles or style kits should be living outside the plugins, and plugins should just consume that. I don't know if that is the correct current stand, or maybe I might be wrong.
I mean, the themes are not, I mean, the themes are CSS/React agnostic. They are independent from any particular specific technology. They're just plain JavaScript objects, so we can always
Yeah, I understand.
import.
What I'm saying is because I see some of the CSS being injected in the code itself, the TSX files itself. So just thinking.
Yeah. I mean, this was a conscious decision. This was a conscious decision to make the styles actually encapsulated and live close to the component, because this has to do with the specificity and the global styles, and we do want to have the styles kind of local, so that we don't have to deal with issues like, I don't know, one selector overriding another one. We might prepare some more abstractions over styles in the future, like, for instance, the predefined components for some typographic elements, some grid system and stuff like that. But we do not plan to actually expose the styles per se, because what we want to do is to deliver kind of a unified experience rather than giving developers too much of a control over how the UI looks. I mean, the amount of the control that we want to give will be constrained by the components that are available via Grafana UI. So the goal is to have a set of basically components that you can use without the need of writing your own custom styles, etc. So whenever you feel like there is something that you miss, then feel free to drop an issue, and we will consider whether this is a candidate for design system component, basically. Does that
makes
answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I have a doubt because suppose if I'm developer developing a plugin, is there any way to consume the Grafana styles? Okay, if my panel have some charts, okay, is there any way to consume the Grafana themes, or I need to come with my own colors for the panel?
Yes, I mean, if you want to consume the styles, the Grafana's class names, etc., there is no way to do that. But you can always, I mean, at least now, and this is not a recommended way, but I'm going to mention it anyways. You of course can use the old class names or the class names that we use all over the place in Grafana. But our goal is to get rid of those. I cannot say whether it's going to be Grafana 9 or Grafana 8. Probably, I mean, for sure, it's not going to be Grafana 8 where we're going to remove the class names, all of the class names that we have currently. But with the React migration, we try to remove more and more classes, the kind of human readable class names that we have. So I would consider using this as anti-pattern currently.
Okay.
We have another issue raised on this, more or less, and that is Grafana inbuilt CSS classes and style guides and colors codes should be well documented and published so that plugin authors can reuse the style guide. I think I can answer this one, just dropped, but we are working on improving the documentation for the design system that you use and maybe basically what you see in our storybook. And we are now doing changes both for the designers and as well for the front-end developers to have more standardized documentation, everything well documented properties and all the things that you can do plus examples. It just takes some time, but we really want to have that done in properly, I would say. And again, if you find something that, yeah. Again, if you find something that you don't know how to use, I think feel free to raise your hand either in the community Slack, in the forum, or just drop an issue, create an issue in that area.
Thanks, Anna.
Anna, I can see there's also a comment from you. I also have a comment. So this is what I've heard from others. And I will give you some background story. And the issue is to persist in changes with version updates. Say version update, meaning you update your Grafana from version 6.4 to 7 something via config and YAML file. And what I know about this issue, what that I heard of is they have the current usage. So there are a lot of other open source projects out there that add Grafana as an interface to visualize whatever they are doing. And they deliver it either via a light or dark theme that they want to have it persistent and not change, especially if you have light and the default is dark. And I've heard that it was an issue when they upgraded from version 6 to version 7. And it's hard to do that change manually every single time. I wish I would know more, but maybe, I don't know, Dominic, you know something about that or could make something out of this feedback.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm not sure I follow this feedback actually.
Yeah.
So have it. If you could repeat, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So my understanding is that other open source projects use Grafana as well to show different metrics, right?
Yeah.
And they want to give it that dashboards to their own community using, let's say, the light theme versus the dark one. So they use for that the config file. That's my understanding. And with version change in Grafana, this change was not persistent. So they got their files overwritten with the theme.
Okay, I mean, I believe that this is. I'm not sure how the configuration file is being treated when you update version, but I would assume that since we are not changing the format of that file and we are not changing the name of that custom configuration file, then I would expect that the configuration file is persisted. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is something that we could we could report to the backend team or the team responsible for the upgrades. But I just don't know what happens with that configuration when you update.
Yeah, I'll try to reach that person again and hopefully get more insights.
Yeah, I think the update should be sort of seamless. So whatever change there is that is not functional should be persisted, but maybe there's some constraint that I'm not aware of.
Okay, thank you, Dominic.
No worries.
Is there something when it comes to the themes that you or people you're working with find particularly challenging or annoying? Nothing? All good? Is there something you liked in particular in what Patrick was showing? Something you feel we should continue exploring?
I'm not sure if, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the colors that I see currently, especially on the line graph panel, which is the one on the left in the middle. Yeah, this one. I actually really like the two default colors. I mean, I don't know if these are the default colors or considered the default colors, but I sort of like these. They are vibrant enough for me to distinguish these two. And they look and they play nice with the entire look and feel of this dashboard, I believe. I'm not a fan of the gradient at the bottom row, but that's just a personal preference. I just don't. I'm just not into the gradients that much. Yeah, and other than that, I think this looks great. One thing that is actually pretty nice about this particular design and the light theme as well is that if you haven't told me, Patrick, that there is a gradient going on in the background, I would probably never notice that, but it's actually a pretty nice addition. It kind of gives some kind of a perception of a depth. It adds the kind of depth perception to the dashboard. So this is a nice touch, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it, and the gradient does give it depth, because when trying to add the panels on a lighter background, the space between the gutters, they sort of felt on top. So they sort of protruded between the panels. So by adding the gradient, they sort of more mellow in the background, which is nice.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But I remember last release 7.3, Tarkle introduced the color schemes, right? Is that applicable to all the panels or just it's for only graph?
It's applicable to all React panels, meaning the single stat, bar gauge, gauge, table, and the graph panel very soon, in a couple of weeks or maybe a month or two, when we introduce a new graph panel. That's also
is that optional per panel, or is there any way to configure globally? Okay, globally across Grafana to select this theme like that?
No, there's no such functionality, unfortunately.
Okay, so that means individual panels needs to be overridden.
Yes, individual. You need to select the schema the palette or the scheme individually per panel. Yes, but yeah, we briefly discussed a possibility to have a configuration per panel. Per dashboard. But I cannot recall discussing configuration per entire Grafana. But this is actually a really good idea for making a consistently.
Because keeping a global variable will make consistent across everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. That would be a nice touch.
We'll slowly moving to the end of the call. Does anyone have any last comments, feedback, or something we should keep in mind while working on those new themes?
I only have one question, but I'm not sure if it's a coding problem with the stream. In this visualization, the panel they have a slight, I don't know, a light shadow, or they're flat, because I'm just seeing something blurred there, and I cannot really see if there is a shadow.
I think there is. I mean that was my impression, that there is a really subtle drop shadow.
There's no drop shadows, but this kind of makes it feel a bit like that. It's just the background is just a gradient, and then the panels are transparent, lying. So the panels picks up the gradients in itself as well, but in a more subtle way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I think it's just an encoding problem. I'm getting like some sort of compressed stream, and it's a little bit blurred. But yeah, thank you. And by the way, it looks very nice. I really love it.
Oh, fun to hear.
If you have any more comments later on, feel free to reach out to us, either on public Slack or on Twitter. Just ping us. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next month, first Monday of December, and stay tuned for the topic.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.